I'm taping, coming to you from my bathroom. That's why you hear the fan, the sound of the fan on. So I just painted my toenails. And that was a 7% alcohol-based solution, and it turns out 2% water-based solution of iodine tincture goes by the name of Lugol solution traditionally. But it's very hard to find Lugols online anymore. It's kind of out of print, so to speak. I got it several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, by the quart amber glass jar. I can't find it anymore. And I use so little of it that it lasts a long time. I think I bought 2 bottles. So I put them in little 2-ounce eyedropper bottles so I can dispense it. So what I've done is I've got a little bottle, and this one's not amber, this is cobalt blue, but be that as it may, a little dispenser bottle. And then I added to my MSM based dilution, since I had only put 1 drop in here, I was fine, which made it 20 parts per million, you know, because a 2-ounce eyedropper bottle is 1,000 to 1 dilution when you count the drops, because there's about 960 drops in a 2-ounce fluid volume of space, and so a 2-ounce eyedropper bottle dilutes down 1 drop of whatever it is you're trying to dilute by a factor of about 1,000. So we have nomenclature. We've got parts per 100, which is percentage, parts per 1,000, which is mille, I think it's a French word, M-I-L-L-E, and then parts per million, which is ppm. So originally with only 1 drop of Lugols, or 2% iodine, diluted down into a base of distilled water that's 2 ounces, a 2-ounce eyedropper bottle, that made the dilution about 20 parts per million. But I found it to be inadequate. It didn't really sting me at all. I got so used to it. You know, after the first day or 2, it was like, come on, you know. So I'm actually increasing the dosage. And I don't know what level I will stabilize at, but currently, today, I upped the ante by adding first 1 drop to the drop that was already in there. That doubles it to 2 drops. And then I added 2 more drops, making a total of 4. So 4 times 20 parts per million is 80 parts per million. So that's about how much I have in there at the moment, which is just under 100 parts per million. Which is, another way to say that is 100 parts per million. Well, 1,000 parts per million would no longer be parts per million. It would be 1 part per 1,000. So it's 1/10 of a part per 1,000, which means it's a percentage of a percentage. 1% of 1%. Just slightly under that, because it's a fraction, it's 0.8. So it's 0.8 of 1% of 1%. If you multiply all those 3 factors together, you get the 80 parts per million that I've got in there. And it was just the right amount of mild sting. And so what I do now is I cup my hand and I take the eyedropper and I fill it up and I dispense about 3/4 of it into my cupped hand, and then but first I lay my penis into my cupped hand, and so then I go around it and massage it and try to coat, especially the tip, but the whole penis with the fluid. And it takes several dispensings of about 2/3 or so of each eyedropper to thoroughly wet the penis. And so I just coat it with the water, and then I let it, I stand over this rug so that I can drip onto a surface that I know is safe. You know, I'm not going to ruin the hardwood floor, because strangely enough we have hardwood floor here in the bathroom. I didn't put it in, but hey, it's okay, but you can't do anything that might ruin the floor, right? So you got to be careful. So I have a rug to stand on so I can drip onto it and let my penis air dry, and then when it's done I can walk away. And it doesn't take long, it air dries very fast. So that's the latest scoop on treating the penis with very dilute iodine to initially change one's disposition. It's a psychological treatment, and hopefully in the long term maybe instigate regeneration of a foreskin, although you know, I think it would depend upon, now it looks like getting accustomed to this procedure such that I don't mind the sting. So the question now is, gee, I wonder what level I can take it up to in terms of concentration. But it's good to start with a real low level. It was wrong of me to start at 2% right away. That was like hell. But being that I'm now in the parts per million range, it's tolerable, it's agreeable, it's an act of compassion is what it is. And so I may want to upgrade life, right? But going the way of dilution is an act of compassion in addition to the desire to improve life. And that has an effect, another effect on the psychology. Not only am I upgrading my psychology in an area of the body that's normally prone to passion, trying to create a dispassionate disposition down in that area, affecting my subconscious mind, because every part of the body outside the brain is the subconscious mind. So I'm trying to impact and alter my subconscious and making it more compassionate, but also upgrading it at the same time, just not being cruel and severe in that upgrade thesis or motivation, execution. But it's spilling out into other areas, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, free energy is nice, but am I being cruel to people? You know, by laying it on too thick and creamy, so to speak, because people like to sleep in their self-indulgence of ignorance. And I'm realizing now that self-contradiction is the nature of not only non-professionalism, but also the nature of evil. Evil will hide its non-professionalism, its self-contradiction, its self-lies, the lies it tells itself, by putting on a facade of desirability or whatever, you know, a facade of appearance, of beauty, of attraction, attractability, without actually being non-self-contradictory. That part gets tucked away underneath the facade of acceptability, of reputation, you know, all the things that have to do with desirability and acceptability and a false sense of pride, as far as I'm concerned. But am I compassionate enough to make allowances for that? Because there is a certain amount of evil in the world, and you can't get anything done without it. If you try to upgrade too much, all to the plane of honesty and a life of non-self-contradiction, nothing gets done. And commercialization is founded on a certain amount of lie. Amazingly enough, that's the basis for money, and that's the basis for commerce, is a certain amount of the lies we tell ourselves that we want to believe in. My mother was famous to me. She wanted me to lie to her and somehow promising made it okay. If I promised a non-truth, and I told her, you know, hey, I'd be lying if I promised you this. Promise me anyway. And so somehow promising made it okay, and it was not okay if I failed to fulfill that promise. But Mom, I told you I was lying. I'd be a walking self-contradiction. See, this is what I could never understand when I'd go off to college and come back with a totally different mindset in which people don't operate that way for the most part. And it's like, whoa, it's like, talk about a disconcertion, you know. It really just turned my head around several times because I couldn't understand somebody who lives such a life, you know. It just made no sense. But this is what I have in my family to put up with. It really is a head turner. But I have to exercise a certain amount of compassion to make allowances for, because what did Charlie say? If you hate your mother, you'll be born into your next lifetime of a much lower consciousness mother. And wouldn't you know it, I got my ex-girlfriend, I got a girlfriend whose consciousness was even more confused than my mother, because she doesn't even know that she lies to herself when she has these episodes, and she doesn't remember. It's like an alcoholic. She can't remember going through these episodic vistas in which she cannot make any sense whatsoever. One word coming out of her mouth contradicts the next word, and she becomes violent at the same time. So this alternate personality of her makes allowances for this self-lying condition. It's so extreme that it has to be cordoned off and quarantined as a second personality, and then a mask of her mother on top of it to make it look okay. But she has no memory. So I had to leave her because I couldn't put up with that. I was losing my self-respect. But that was more intense than what my mother and my brother and my stepfather entertained, that kind of consciousness. And what surrounds my son in his foster care, same thing of a life led of self-contradictions. So I find it a personal affront. I get offended when I see this. That's my initial reaction. But now that I get more deeply into it and really, I realize, if I push this free energy thing, I'm really running up against the same problem all over again. Do I accept people for what they are? They want to lead a life of self-contradiction. That's a life of ignorance. They want to be ignorant. They want to sleep in their ignorance, and they want to leave awareness alone. They want to leave honesty alone, self-honesty. I don't care what people lie to each other. It's what we lie to ourselves that bothers me, because it all starts there. And that's the worst kind of offense, is the lies we tell ourselves. I'm telling you, I know this from personal experience. The problem now I'm having is, how do I tolerate other people's lies that they tell to themselves? Do I go and try to wake them up? Is it worth it? Who wants to listen to me? That's all it comes down to. And the people who don't want to listen to me, I need to stay away from them, because it's not worth my time and it's not worth theirs. Because they know what I'm presenting, or else they wouldn't know enough to defend themselves against it. So they do know what it is. They do know what free energy is. They do know what honesty is. And they're not being honest in the realm of physics to lay their claim that free energy is not possible, any more than they're being honest with me. So what am I wasting my time for? If they're not ignorant, or else they wouldn't know enough to defend themselves against me. They're not ignorant. And so now they've upgraded themselves in my mind. I see them on a better plane, because now I see that they are aware. They're not ignorant, they are aware. So I don't need to feed the hungry with knowledge, because they already have the knowledge and they don't want any more. They got too much. So it's no wonder they puke in my face when I come to them with the new knowledge, because it's not new. Oh, we've seen this before, it's a scam. See? It's not new knowledge. It doesn't matter that they misrepresent it to themselves, let alone to me. It doesn't matter. The fact is, they already think they know. And they don't want to know more, because they don't like what they know. They don't like what they know. So if I correct them on their misjudgment of the situation, they're only going to dislike me even more than they already disliked themselves. And since everything is relative, right? That makes me the enemy now, and not themselves. Whereas before, it was just themselves that was the enemy, but they could live with that. They can't live with me, because I'm trying to fix them, right? They don't want to be fixed, so this is a real problem. I have to be careful. For long life, it's good to be compassionate. Oh God, what a world we live in. But if I take care of myself and upgrade the areas of my physiology, the areas of my subconscious that are pulling me down, namely my feet and my crotch, in a manner that I can tolerate, in a way that is compassionate, as well as a way that is upgrade and improvement of purification, in a way that's purifying, but at a tolerable level of intensity of purification, then I don't have to worry about my body dragging me down, and at least I get to suffer less. The hell with the rest of the world. And it's funny, the hell to the rest of the world is a statement of compassion. I never would have dreamed of it. I thought it was a world, oh, you don't care, you're such a careless individual, you don't care about other people. Well, yeah, that's true, but it only amounts to a handful who care. The rest don't, and don't want to. Oh, God. This is a riot. I can't help it. I don't know if I'm laughing or crying. I think it's both. Well, it's the way it is.